So welcome everyone. It's fantastic to have you here today for our session on public speaking strategies for women who are introverted or who are neurodivergent. It's just great to have you here. We are not saying that women who are neurodivergent should be introverted or vice versa. We're just really thinking about the intersection of identities and supporting women who are introverted and or neurodivergent. So it's great to have you here. I want to start by saying a huge thank you on behalf of my social enterprise, Rocking Your Teens. Your donations will go towards increasing resilience, inspiring and raising aspirations in teens. And if anyone wants to find out more about Rocking Your Teens, please do go to our website, rockingyourteens.com. My colleague Tanya is beavering away in the background really helpfully and is putting some of the links in the chat. So she's just put that link in, but look out during the session because she'll be adding links into the chat. And also feel free as we go through the session to write your comments and your questions into the chat as well. So my name is Jenny Garrett. I'm an award-winning career coach, author, and leadership trainer. Together with my team, we deliver impactful development to support women and those from ethnically diverse backgrounds, or the global majority, as I like to call them, to progress at work, as well as supporting majority group leaders to make inclusion happen. My latest practical and empowering book is Equality versus Equity, Tackling Issues of Race in the Workplace. Please do check it out. Again, my colleague Tanya will put it in the chat so you can look it up and find out more about it. So public speaking, it's a big thing, isn't it? I think they said there that public speaking is more scary than death for a lot of people. I think they said when they asked people the thing they're most scared about, death came third and public speaking maybe was second or first. So we know it can be scary for a lot of people, but we also know that it's an integral aspect of many roles, whether it's speaking up on an online call or addressing an auditorium of hundreds of people. And according to the research, most people are terrified, but when you have a preference for introversion or you are a person who is neurodivergent too, that's amplified. It then challenges you with anxiety, trying to organize what you have to say, staying on track, and also delivering what you want to say can be really difficult. But we're going to discuss some of the opportunities around this and some of the strategies to cope today. We've got a wonderful panel of executive coaches. Joseph is included in the Diverse Executive Coach Directory. And we have two special guests as well today, Rena and Nicole, and you'll hear a bit more about what they do also. But do look up our directory. It's a directory particularly set up to support and to really increase the awareness of coaches from ethnically diverse backgrounds working at the most senior levels in UK organisations. So how we'll run the session today is that Joseph, Rena and Nicole will briefly introduce themselves. I'll start off by asking them some questions and then we'll hand it over to you. We'll open it up to you for your questions and your reflections. So please do add them into the chat so that we don't miss anything. We're also real advocates of social media. So if you like to tweet or post on LinkedIn or any other platform about this session, the hashtag is public speaking, hashtag neurodivergent speaker, hashtag introverted speaker. You can choose any of those hashtags. And Tanya will put the full Twitter socials in the chat, but of course you can just type in our names and find us all on LinkedIn as well. So those of you who've been to our sessions before know that I like to start off with a poll. So I'm going to get this poll up because we want to know who's in the room. We want to know who's here and who we're speaking with and what you're most interested in learning as well. So the first question is, would you describe yourself as introverted, neurodivergent, or female? And you can click all three if they're appropriate to you, or however many are appropriate to you. And the second question is, have you attended this session to find strategies to support, it says. I don't think the full question has come out. So the question is to support yourself, oh yes, or a colleague. That's it. It just wasn't showing fully for me. Yeah. Lovely. Give you a minute or so to finish. We've got 71% of you have completed it so far. I always like to get to at least 85%. So encouraging those who haven't pressed a button yet to do so. And if you can't see the poll, I know sometimes when you're joining from a phone or another device, it can be difficult. You can just type the answer in the chat if that's easier. So would you describe yourself as introverted, neurodivergent, or female, or all of them, or two of them? Have you attended to find strategies to support yourself or to support a colleague? Great. Okay, I've got over that 85% mark. So I will share the results. Hopefully you can see that. So 98% of people said they are female. 48% said they are neurodivergent, and 75% said they were introverted. So you're all absolutely in the right place. All of you are looking to find strategies for yourself, but also 20% of you are looking to find strategies for your colleagues also. So that helps us keep in mind what you're looking for. You're all very, very welcome, and we're really happy to have you here. So I will stop sharing that and come out of it. Okay, so I think let's start by asking our wonderful panel to introduce themselves. And I'll start off with Joseph. Please do introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you, Jenny. Hello, everyone. I'm Joseph Obunna. I'm a leadership coach for leaders and aspiring leaders. I help them to lead themselves first so that they can lead others. I just seem to have a knack for spotting an angle on things that usually isn't obvious. Call it my background, yeah, but and that helps people see another angle or reframe what's going on with them. I belong to one of the best speaking clubs in the universe, based in London. And I've learned a lot about speaking, both for myself, but also for others, and has seen how we have progressed. I believe I'm introverted, but my family doesn't agree. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Love that introduction. Over to you, Rena.
Hi, I'm Rena. I just can't beat that introduction. That was so good, Joseph. I deliver talks and workshops on the intersection of race and neurodiversity to create awareness of how the experience of neurodivergent individuals from the global majority differs from that of others. And it's lovely to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Rena. And Nicole.
Hi, so my name is Nicole Etienne. I'm an EMCC accredited coach at senior practitioner level and a coaching psychologist. I use evidence-based research and applied positive psychology and coaching psychology to help people flourish. My dissertation at the University of East London focused on post-traumatic growth. So I'm trauma-informed. I help individuals, managers, and leaders to improve their well-being, achieve better self-awareness, and overcome obstacles to promote resilience. So I coach neurotypical and neurodivergent adults and offer supervision for coaches. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now you can see why I brought this amazing group of people together, can't you? So much expertise in all aspects of what we're really trying to focus on today. And they'll bring their different angles, their different perspectives, their different experiences to the conversation. So I really can't wait, and let's jump straight into it. So what do you think are the challenges when it comes to public speaking for women, particularly those who are introverted or perhaps also introverted and neurodivergent, or any combination of those things? I'm going to start with you, Joseph. What do you think?
Well, thank you, Jenny. So most of us want to be comfortable in who we are, in being our authentic selves. And you many times, if you are an outgoing, bubbly person, you fit into, I guess, the mold that society expects of people to be out there. If you're senior in an organization, be comfortable presenting, meeting people, going out with colleagues, going out with clients. But the reality is, for many people, therefore, who are not in that mold, is a challenge. There's a rub between who they are and who they're expected to be. And so when when this happens, we begin to doubt ourselves. And oftentimes, even though this is about a preference in how you are, we can begin to doubt who we are and our abilities. And that's not quite the case. And it becomes quite challenging for people. And the other thing that happens as well is, as people get more senior, they invest more in their success and how their success and how they are seen and where those two meet. And if you are therefore not comfortable being out there, or you're introverted, or you don't see the world in the same way, that experience the world in the same way as other people do, that it could be much more of a challenge for you. So public speaking is often seen as a requirement for seniority in organizations, but how does that meet for people who are not like that, who are not in that mold? So that's a challenge I see.
Some great points. I think the expectations of organizations versus the reality of the many wonderful differences that we have. It's a really good sort of clarion call to organizations to think differently. Thank you so much, Joseph. Rena, what about you? What do you think?
Thank you. So we know that the spectrum of neurodiversity is vast. And there are many neurotypes, including autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and the list goes on. And it means, essentially that people's way of thinking and experiencing the world is different. And the impact of that can affect individuals' cognitive processing, their social interactions, and their communication skills, as an example. But when you combine them with the societal expectations and biases, for example, surrounding gender roles, then any challenges in those areas can essentially be further amplified for neurodivergent women. And so kind of examples would include, any social communication difficulties or sensory sensitivities, such as, being distracted by bright lights or loud noises, crowded spaces. Think of open plan offices and kind of the humdrum and all of the activity going on. It could be executive function challenges such as organising thoughts or time, managing anxiety, the stereotyping and bias around how women should present, and in particular women of colour, managing anxiety, having limited support and understanding from others, colleagues, and other people at work. All of that can present some challenges. And I think it's just worth just drawing out one small example. It's not small, but one of many examples. If we look at, just to highlight the difference in global majority experiences. So the average age for a diagnosis for a white male for ADHD is 7 years old, whereas for a woman it's 30. And there is privilege kind of at play here. And I don't mean privilege in the form of comfort, I mean privilege in the absence of barriers. Just to take, for example, some of the barriers experienced by Black women in obtaining an ADHD diagnosis would include, inequalities with regards to healthcare and just being able to get that assessment and that diagnosis, the adultification of young Black girls in the education system, the fear of stigmatization, the expectation to be strong, and also some of the more challenging relationships with mental health care systems. So that's, just, so when you add, I guess, the layer of being from a global majority background, there are further barriers that can present to when you are neurodivergent or also introverted.
Thank you so much. I think that's so insightful for people to really start to think about that intersectionality. People they might be labeling difficult or lazy or whatever, there might be an additional layer there. And I definitely know that I've coached people who have not wanted to be open about their neurodivergence at all. And so it does leave it open to interpretation, but people don't seem to go there and think that that could be a possibility. So thank you so much for flagging it, Rena. Nicole, what would you add to this already very rich conversation?
Yes. So thank you, Rena and Joseph. Really insightful, really impactful. And I'd just like to talk about the challenges that can present with overthinking. And it's almost thinking what needs to happen mainly before the event. So preparing for a public speaking event, what can I do to prepare? What will I wear? What will my energy levels be like? Who's going to be there? What about eye contact? Will there be any technical difficulties? Will they listen to what I've got to say? What can I do to keep grounded and focused? Am I able to leave the room quickly? How long will I need to recover after the event has taken place? So all of this may lead to feelings of anxiety and frustration, particularly for neurodivergent individuals. And it can be a lonely road sometimes, especially if you don't have someone to talk through things with.
Thank you. You brought to mind an example, actually. I did a talk, I think it was last year, where we had to put headphones on. That was the way everyone on stage had to put headphones on, even me delivering the talk. And the person who was going to interview me after my talk said, I can't have headphones, I can't have things touching me. Part of his neurodivergence was that. And luckily they found another solution, and luckily he stayed calm, but it could have been really very uncomfortable putting him in a position where they just assumed it would be okay to do something. So that sort of creating the right environment, knowing what's coming, feels like a challenge when sometimes it is a bit unpredictable, isn't it? And people don't know, and people are very last minute. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. So my second question to you all is, how can you leverage neurodivergence and or introversion for female speakers? How can you actually leverage this? Because we're talking about challenges and it sounds a little bit doom and gloom. Is there something positive that can come from it? I really would like to know. And I'm going to start with Rena this time.
100%. Yeah, there is so much positivity. There's so much positivity. And, you know, I'm so passionate about this, unleashing the potential of people, you know, also for people to realize their own potential. Neurodivergent individuals can bring such unique perspectives and creativity and fresh ideas and ways of perceiving the world, which others don't see. They just don't see it in the same way, to the point that there are actually companies who specifically will hire neurodivergent individuals for particular roles because they want that out of the box thinking. You know, many neurodivergent individuals have incredible attention to detail and thoroughness, which is at a level of exception above that of others. Being able to bring hyper-focus and deep knowledge by immersing themselves into topics and becoming subject matter experts, which, you know, in a world which is so highly distractible, is such an incredible quality to be able to bring to any workplace. You know, if a neurodivergent individual is in a psychologically safe environment, they can bring their authenticity right there into the workplace and not have to feel that they have to conform to artificial personas or, you know, being in a particular way or showing up in a certain way. And often because of their lived experience of being neurodivergent, they will bring with them a level of resilience that is unparalleled, as well as empathy and understanding and the ability to relate to such a diverse audience. And I think it's really important for employers, hiring managers, people to just also question their own stereotypes. So, you know, as a kind of a more typical example, autistic people may be seen as rigid in their thinking, and so if there's an opportunity for promotion that may lead to moving of desks, someone you know, because of their own internal biases, may not consider that neurodivergent person because they think, oh well, it might upset them and therefore we won't, allow them, or not allow them, but they won't encourage them to perhaps take that opportunity. And actually that is doing a great disservice to that person, because with the right amount of support and structure and things like that, people, neurodivergent people are able to adapt and change. It's just about communication and making sure that things are done in a supportive way. So I think it is really important for us to always question why we think the things we do and why we do the things we do, to make sure that we're not unintentionally discriminating against others.
Thank you so much. I really love that, because I could see that happening all the time. Let's not rock the boat for them. Let's keep them where they are. Let's not ask them to do that talk because, oh, it will be a different environment. It will be so difficult. Instead of thinking, what are the steps we need to work through to make this doable? And I think that's the shift in thinking that I'm hearing from you. Nicole, what about you? What do you think in terms of leveraging neurodivergence or introversion as a woman?
Yes, so connection and engagement with other neurodivergent or introverted individuals is important. I think it's key really to connect, to talk through situations and challenges, set intentions and work together to bring awareness that leads to reasonable adjustments being put in place. So we're set up for success. Working from a place of strengths is valuable and needs to be voiced.
Love, I really, yeah, that's great. And I actually know there is support out there now, isn't there? Access to work support. I think there are workplace coaches who can help, especially in large organizations. I think, I think in small as well, but large organizations, there should be someone you can go to and say, I've got this big talk coming up. Can you help me be able to organize myself and do what I need to do to feel fully supported and able? Joseph, what about you? How can we leverage neurodivergence or introversion for women speakers?
Thank you, Jenny. So there's excellence, as they say, usually comes from our strengths. It's our strengths in what we can do, often better than the people around us. So understanding for ourselves, what is it we can, as an individual, I can do perhaps as well, if not better than others? What angles can I see that others cannot see? Now, that's for the individual, but remembering that we are speaking of public speaking here. This is an individual who doesn't want to be on that stage. I've been in our speaking club where people get called up to give a 1-minute speech, and they cannot wait to get off. So they say the very least they can do and get off the stage. But over time, with exposure, I see people now, you need to drag them off. You need to ring a bell to get them off the stage, because they have found their zone in which they are able to speak. And often that comes from that angle that they have of the world that other people don't have. And when they speak to that, when they have that in mind and speak to that, and see the engagement of the audience, then they realize that it's not all about how they feel, but what is the message? What message do they have to deliver? So if you're as a woman and you're uncomfortable and it's all a sea of faces, which are mostly men, what is it that you can see, or from your experience, an angle that you can speak to, which other men will not speak to, other men would not expect? That will give the engagement, which in many ways then acts as a spark for you to keep speaking and going again. Now, it's still going to be difficult, and you will have to prepare yourself in terms of getting used to slowing down your breathing, sometimes looking in the mirror, yes, rehearsing what you're going to say, but remembering that it is not just what you're going to say, but how you are in yourself. Being vulnerable, for example, starting a speech with, I'm uncomfortable with this, with speaking here. However, what I'm about to say is important. So let's get into it. So you've acknowledged it, and there's tricks like that which you will gain or you can learn that enable you to connect the reason why you are there standing, putting yourself through this, what might seem like torture, to stand in front of people and speak. And if you are neurodivergent, there are angles that the way you experience the world will be a revelation to many people. So speak to that. And how does that connect to the message that you have? Speak to that and go with it. Step by step. The first time you do it, it'll be uncomfortable, painful maybe. But if you go again and learn, then you can slowly get there. It's not a no-no. It'll be uncomfortable for some people more than for others, but it can be done. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I think that I attended a TED talk and the person just wanted to express what it was like in their head. So a TED talk, normally you do months of preparation. It's down to the minute, exactly what you're going to say. And you've rehearsed it. And the person showed up and just said, I'm going to show you what it's like in my mind, and spoke for the allotted time. And, you know, there were times when they said, oh, I don't know if I shouldn't have worn shorts today, should I really? You know, oh, goodness, my mum's going to see this. Is she going to be embarrassed? But it was a really great way of showing that actually you don't have to do things the way they've always been done. And you can really celebrate you through the way in which you engage really authentically. And, you know, I went to this TED talk, there were lots of others, but that person who kind of just showed up, was themselves, expressed, my mind works like this. There was no way I was going to be able to prepare and do this, but this is what I bring, is one of the most memorable. And Susie Izzard, you know, is really very famous for going off on tangents. And it just has become part of their act now, you know, and that's amazing. And I think when we were talking, someone was talking about a lawyer who found it really difficult to grasp long words. Who was that?
Yeah, it was me. Yes. So he was he struggled with long words and big words, and so but he wanted to be a lawyer. But lawyers stand up and speak, and the legal there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of big words which make the impact. But he went the other way to learn simple words. Anything he has to say, he'll find the simplest way to say it. Guess what? When he gets into court, the jury understand everything he says. And he's successful because he's used who he is, spun it around and showed up.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, we've got a really great question here, actually. So I just want to jump to that question. So I often feel fine until I say my first word. Then I get breathless and my face goes red. Any tips or tricks to help with that?
I think what's important, because it happens to me as well, so I can, you know, deeply empathize, having water with you, because I've got my cup here with me. And I think drinking water to help change state, and taking deep breaths through your nose, inhaling, exhaling through your nose really helps. So I think just getting grounded and centered and purposeful would really help as a starting point.
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. The thing is that many times we hear about breathing and we want to practice it when this happens. I'm similar. I think I'm calm, and then I'll get on stage about to speak, and then I notice my heart is beating and all that. Therefore, what I've done is begin the practice of breathing, the slow breathing, the breathing that I might need in future. Get used to doing it so that when this happens, you know what the effect will be. You know it will calm down, it will slow down, and then remembering, why am I here? People are not listening to me because I'm out of breath. They're listening to me because I have something crucial to say. So go back to it. It's almost like having a mantra in meditation, go back to what you're meant to be doing, go back to what you're meant to be doing. That helps.
I would just add, I do the breathing thing. I, despite having spoken in many places and ways, still have this same experience that the person in the chat had put. What helps me is whatever the opening paragraph is of the thing I'm talking about, memorize that. Because once you've got the first part out and it helps to settle yourself in. You don't need to memorize the whole presentation, but just the first thing you're going to say, which is usually an introduction. Actually, often it's an introduction. So practice it and practice it and practice it, because then you're kind of that once you've done that first paragraph, it can just help you buoy you for the next bit.
May I add something as you were speaking there? It's a mad thing someone said to me at the speaking club. It says, go back when you're rehearsing that and you're memorizing it, go out into the park and rehearse it to pigeons.
That's interesting. So I've got two things that I do, and I think I would describe myself as an introverted woman. So one of the things that was taught to me to do was that your energy, the reason why I used to get a bit shaky and then my voice wouldn't work properly, is to get rid of the adrenaline before the talk, because even though you think you're calm, you're not. So I've often been found in a toilet cubicle jumping up and down before a talk, just trying to get rid of all of that energy. So that's one of the things. And my other strategy is to ask a question early on, even if it's just raise your hand if. It gives you a moment to pause. I don't have to speak. I'm getting them to either speak or do something. So getting some participation, the thought of, oh my gosh, everyone's having to listen to me for, I don't know, 10, 30 minutes, an hour, that can sometimes get into your head. But if you start thinking about this as more of a dialogue, that can take some of the pressure off, give you some breathing space. So don't be afraid to ask your audience a question. Again, that can just let you off the hook for a moment, and also it engages them. And I guess I have one final tip which really helped me, which is it's just not about me. I think sometimes when we get really nervous, it's because we're thinking, what are they thinking of me? Oh my gosh, they're thinking this. But as has been said in different ways, be purposeful, know why you're delivering a talk. And it's like, who am I speaking to? Why do they really need to hear this? Why is this so important? I'm not important. This message getting out there is important. And again, if some of what's happening is because you're getting in your own head and thinking, oh my goodness, they're not really listening, or they're looking at me, but they're criticizing what I'm wearing or the word I use, then that's when it detracts from you being able to really focus. So yeah, it's about them, it's not about you. And if you have that one person, there's one person in the audience who's going to really need to hear this, that can be so helpful. Okay, so I've got one final question to you, I believe, and then we'll open it up to more audience questions. And that question, I'm going to start with Rena, because I know that you do have to pop off early. So what are useful strategies that you'd advise or seen work for your clients who are women, who are neurodiverse and or introverted when it comes to public speaking? And I guess you may have said some of them already, but if there's anything else you want to add.
I think what I would add is find your kin at work. There is so much strength in numbers. So whether that's an employee resource group or a place where you can meet colleagues who either are also neurodivergent or have similar similarities to you, because what you can do is create that safe space to practice. And you can, if you are part of an ERG, for example, you can offer to chair a meeting. If you're really, really new at public speaking, then start small. And or offer to make a contribution at a meeting. So it's whatever your subject specialism is, but contribute something for 5 minutes of the meeting. But just get that. All of that is public speaking. And I remember Joseph saying, you'll probably share it later, but when you're talking to more than one person, I think you said it, essentially that counts as public speaking. And I think that's a really great analogy. So all of it, treat it all as public speaking, whether it's, you know, in a meeting or elsewhere. But also, I think it's really important for managers and other people in positions with line management duties to really think about, you know, what are your employees' aspirations? Do they want to progress? And if they do, how can you support them to achieve them? If part of that, often, so from a previous job I did, so my background is that I'm a solicitor and I was a former ombudsman dealing with Equality Act related cases, and a lot of that would have been, you know, presenting on cases and things like that. But if I didn't do the presentations, I would not qualify for some of the criteria to progress. And I would, you know, so if it is integral to your role and you need some support with that, hopefully you feel safe enough to share that with your employer. And as a manager, I hope that you're questioning how you can support your employees that might need a bit of encouragement in that space and some practice. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. I will go to, who wants to go next? Shall I go to Joseph?
Yes, what Rina just said about people being expected to present. And it's often, many times in organizations, especially when we are teaching, we even do it with children. We ask them to just get on with it. But if you realize that this person you're asking to just get on with it cannot just get on with it like you would, they're not like you, then you can engage with them in a conversation to say, how can we do this? This is what you want to do. This is what you want to achieve. So that's for the organization. For the individuals, I thoroughly recommend a speaking club. Berkeley Square Speakers is the one I attend, and you get to do things like someone calls you up and you don't know who's they're going to call up. We say it's picking victims. So and we laugh about it because we are seeing it like that. We make light of it, and you're called up and you asked a question, something like someone asked me, what is royal yellow? That was a question they asked me, and I had 1 to 2 minutes to talk about that. And so the first thing that comes to mind is what's encouraged, but the fact is that you're exposing yourself in small bits to this sea of people looking at you, and you don't know what to do. So how do you feel about it? How do you feel in that space? And what do you do? And when you finish, you get feedback. You get feedback, even if you've just introduced someone, you get feedback. Someone will say to you what the commendation and the recommendation for improvement. So you're getting feedback in a safe environment. You can come back, know that no one's going to laugh at you, because people are too busy with their lives to be laughing at you. If they're interested in laughing at you, they shouldn't be there. And if you are in meetings, therefore, anytime, like Rina reminded us, there's more than one person you're speaking to, consider that an audience and practice. How do you show up? How do you start? How do you finish what you're saying, however short it is? So I would recommend thoroughly joining a speaking club, because it's fun and you play with it, even though you are learning something serious. Thank you. You're muted, Jenny.
Thank you. I was just thinking, I do have some family members who are neurodivergent, and when they want to do a speech, what I normally do is I ask them to speak to me about what they want to say, and they sort of give it all out to me, and then I reorder it for them into a sort of, for me, what is the sort of more logical way. And then they are quite good at just reading. If it's a speech that you need to read, they will read it really eloquently. I know we're all very different, and it depends what sort of neurodivergent you have, but I found it's like sometimes having a buddy who can just give you that extra thing that is harder for you, but it's still your speech, it's your words, it's just done a little bit differently. So I think a buddy can be really good, not just people who perhaps are neurodivergent, but someone who maybe just looks at things differently as well, if they're willing to support you. Nicole, what thoughts do you have on this? Oh, we can't hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, the joys of technology. So I was just saying it's necessary to plan and prepare well before the event. And going back to what I said earlier about the challenges, and it's important to consider those and think what needs to put in place or what will work. And reflection can be so insightful. And for neurodivergent individuals, it's thinking about your clean setup. And that means asking yourself important questions. And the clean setup is from Doyle and Walker. Some of you may have heard of Nancy Doyle. It's a series of questions you can ask yourself before the event so that you're clear about what you need for the event to go the way you'd like it to, and to help you get into the right frame of mind. So the clean setup questions are, for this to go just the way I'd like it to, it will be like what? What will I see, hear, feel when it's going the way I want it to? So that's your evidence. For this event or situation to go the way I'd like it to, I'll need it to be like what? What will I see, hear, and feel when it's like that? Again, the evidence. And what support resources will I need? So when you're presenting, think of it as a story you're telling. Have a short pause after each comma and full stop. Practice, practice, and then some. So it's important also as neurodivergent individuals to practice your stance, your connection with the audience, your story, and your pauses. I've worked with clients who talk about their pauses. It's been so impactful, helpful, just looking, thinking about the commas and the full stops and where they can take a breath, even where they can stop for a minute and take a drink, during their speaking. And also it's important to have valuable feedback from a friend. Like Jenny was saying, just talk to someone. It may be a family member. So just to get that feedback and keep your brain happy in preparation for the event by indulging in well-being practices. Well-being is so important, and sometimes we neglect our well-being. Walking in nature, eating healthy foods, drinking water, rest. And and what's important, especially for neurodivergent individuals to consider, is that rest period afterwards, because sometimes it can be so much is happening during that event for you as a person. So take time to recharge and relax and get some sleep.
Fabulous. Oh, they were great tips. I loved the holistic nature of the tips that you gave. So the whole person. And you're absolutely right. If I'm dehydrated, I haven't had breakfast, I'm going to deliver a talk, I'm not going to be the best. My brain's not going to be clear as it would have been if I'd done all the things that I need to, especially if I'm anxious as well. So we have a question here, and in a way, your ideas about pausing might be helpful. But someone said, I can stutter or not get words out or get anxious about doing so. So it's the anticipation of not being able to get words out. Any tips for this? I'll start with you, Joseph.
For someone who stutters, that's reality. And it's not for me, it's not a judgment. Now, there may be people who can make a judgment for that, but they don't know what else you're about to say. So I think accepting, if you do stutter, accepting that you do stutter, and if you do, as you're speaking, you stutter, breathing and accepting it, and knowing that what you're about to say will come out is important. Is that thing of going back to the message. I think it's so important to know why we are there. So I think with the stutter, because I know from people I know who stutter, that the more you get anxious, the worse it becomes. And so going the opposite and accepting this is it. You're not perfect, neither is anybody else in the audience. So accept that part of you and go on with your message. You might need to think of what else, how else are the people around you, people in the audience, not perfect, before you go in there, to remind yourself that when this happens, that you can go on.
I would say something else around stuttering as well. And I have family members who stutter, but I think that when people are able to make a joke, even at the beginning of their talk, and it could be about something like a stutter, it just diffuses all the pressure off yourself. You know, if you say, I might stutter, haha, I'm on stage, you've got no choice but to wait. Because people who stutter are often interrupted. People want to say what they're going to say or rush them along. But if you say, well, I hold the stage, so you cannot rush me, I will stutter if I stutter, or something like that, it can kind of just, you know, actually everyone will laugh and they'll know the situation. And I think humor can be such a great tool if you're able to use it effectively, and it just diffuses a lot of that tension and pressure that you might be putting on yourself. So I'd encourage you to think, is there some humor you can add that can help? That would be an encouragement from my side. Shall I put so I've got a lovely comment here from Sam Ming. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm neurodiverse, and yesterday I was given the opportunity to share my experience of being on one of Jenny Garrett's leadership programs. This took me out of my comfort zone, but this was my first step on my public speaking journey. I would like to thank Jenny for this opportunity. You were amazing, Sam, absolutely amazing. And you brought your authentic self, and that's what it's about. You brought yourself, and you actually said it right at the beginning. I am a neurodivergent. Yeah, you said it, and everyone, no one said, oh, we don't want to listen to her now. Everyone embraced it, and actually you were getting lots of rounds of applause at the end of your talk. So absolutely, I think a lot of this is about owning it. I think too often in life where we think we have to assimilate to the majority group, and I don't think that serves us. So I think that's a clear message that's coming through today. Okay, any tips on thinking quickly in response to questions asked in a talk? It's a good question. I'll stop talking and let someone else answer that one.
Nicole, anyone?
Yeah, so I think it's important, you know, to really process the information. Take time. It's your time. And before responding.
Yeah, to add to that, so one of the things I say, many times when we speak, if you listen to people speaking, now I say it, you'll notice it more. There's a lot of, and that is buying time. The other thing the way to look at that is, anytime you feel you don't know what to say, pause. People will wait. If what you're saying is important, people will wait. So if that happens, don't get rushed into the expectation, because the expectation is only in your head, that they want you to come up with an answer quickly. You can say, let me think about this. And people will wait for you to think about it. Now, yes, the gap cannot be too long, but you're thinking, you cannot speed up your thinking. If you are prepared, you will know somewhere in there, and trust yourself that what's in there is there. And you respond. If it's something, if you don't know what to say at that time, it may not be, it may just be, I'll come back to you. If what they want is they really want it, they'll wait for you to come back to them, but make a note and go back to them so that they know, that person knows that you have made the effort and you've come back to them.
Yeah, I think as well, you hear speakers do it all the time. That's a great question. And when they're saying that, quite often they're buying a bit of time, thinking, I'm saying that's a great question while I'm thinking of what I might respond. Yeah, but absolutely, and completely agree with all of the other points as well. But you might have a set answer, or it might be that you just want to spend more time. You might prepare your talk, but you might not prepared what questions might they ask me. And so it might be that additional layer of preparation that you need to do to feel prepared for the sorts of questions they ask. And the other thing that politicians do is they answer a totally different question. So they might ask you this question, you might think, well, I've prepared that question. And you might say, you know, another question might be this, and you could answer your own question. There's no harm in doing that. So there are so many creative ways around this. Don't be stumped. And most people can't, I don't think that quickly, really. They don't, unless they've had the question many times before. People aren't thinking quickly, it's from experience. So like so many things, the way to get better at this is to do it. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The least you do it, the more you sort of gets bigger in your head and becomes a big issue. So it's all about practice, really. I think this idea of thinking quickly, I think it's about preparation and about practice, and about not beating yourself up if you don't know an answer on the spot as well. As long as you do come back to someone, if you said you would, that's more what it's about, I think. Okay, I think we may have got to the end of our questions, which have all been great. I wanted to pick up on something. Nicole, you mentioned storytelling being a great tool, and I don't know if you mentioned it much earlier, but do you want to talk a bit more about how storytelling can be helpful?
Yeah, so with storytelling, it's important, you know, when you think about your own story and how you present, you know, just it's a matter of ice breaking. Think how you break the ice at the onset of your speaking. And then in order to guide your thoughts along, it's important to think of a story that will allow what you're about to say to flow. So sometimes when I'm doing a presentation, I would bring my own story. Sometimes it might be my own personal story into there. And it's sort of, you know, ebbs and flows throughout what I've got to say from the main point that I've got to make. So I think the audience is quite intrigued by storytelling. It keeps them captivated. And that's what you want sometimes with your audience, to keep them captivated. And as Jenny was saying earlier, it may be, you know, in a form of a joke as you tell your story and you pause and your tonality and your voice that you use. It's so helpful in keeping your audience, you know, just listening, really listening to what you've got to say. And it lightens up the mood as well.
Absolutely. I agree. I think that stories are easier to remember than lots of bullet points or a long speech. You know, your story has a beginning, it has a middle and end. So it may be easier on the mind as well. And stories can go off on a tangent and come back, and you don't get penalized for that. So I think that's a really good thing about storytelling. So I think that's an amazing tool in your toolkit also.
Yeah, Jenny, it's I smiled all the way through Nicole's response, because she wasn't just saying that, she was acting what she was saying. She was at one with her words in the way she responded, the pauses, her thinking, her expression. That was a story, and people will remember that more than the facts of what it is. They'll remember why and the point you were making rather than many of the facts. So yeah, great tool. Well done. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you so much. Thank you both, and also Rena, for all of your input. I hope everyone attending has found it useful. A huge thanks to Joseph, a huge thanks to Rena, a huge thanks to Nicole. You can find out more about Joseph in the Diverse Executive Coach Directory, a directory which connects corporate organizations with coaches from ethnically diverse backgrounds. And you can find more about Rena and Nicole by just looking them up on LinkedIn. You'll find them there. So do look out for our directory. Do find out more about my book. And also we have an event coming up. Our next event is Networking for Career Success, when you are the only in the room. So networking for career success, when you are the only in the room. And that's on the 20th of July. We really hope to see you there. We have a survey in the chat, and we'd really love to hear from you. What did you find useful about today? What could be better? What else would you like to hear about? Yeah, so really, really, really great to see you today. Thank you all so much. Take those few minutes to complete the survey. We won't close the room just yet. But Joseph and Nicole, if you want to pop off right now, please feel free to do so. And a huge thanks to you. So many golden nuggets of useful information for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And thank you for listening. Practice.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jenny, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Take care.